let's move on and let's talk about Richarlison now. Obviously, he had his best performance in a Spurs shirt on the weekend. I can already see Dave about to shake his head with what I'm about to say. But, you know, Dave, you did speak earlier on saying it's no coincidence that Sonny, after he puts his injury problems behind him, gets his surgery done and recovers from that, you see a much better Heung-min Son. Well, can we say the same? I'll go to Adam first, but can we say the same about a Richarlison now? Because he's put his problems behind him in terms of injuries. He's had the surgery and he's looking much better for it, especially in his first game back. So have we seen the real Richarlison in that game now?
I don't think we've seen the real Richarlison until we're seeing him absolutely blow teams away. I think that I really think that there's a serious player in there that's being completely underrated, and I don't begrudge anybody for underrating him, because he hasn't come in and set the world on fire at Tottenham for numerous different reasons. A huge part of it for me is that he hasn't had a consistent run of games in the number 9, which I maintain is his best position. When you look at what he does for Brazil. I just think that there's way more to come from him, and I'm still one of those in the camp of we would be remiss, especially after spending 60 million on him, we would be remiss to let him go now and not give him the opportunity to do what I believe he does best. And I've had this conversation on Sean Butler's channel all the time, and he says, you're only saying that because you've got a Brazilian wife. And to that I say, Emerson Royal is not someone that he's not the kind of person, he's not the player that I'm going to die on.
Emerson's not really Brazilian, Adam. I don't know if you got the memo.
Lucas Moura is another one that I love that man to death. I absolutely love that man. I'd love to meet him in real life and buy him a pint and have a chat with him. But I was saying that he needed to be let go about 2 seasons before we let him go. So it's not my Brazilian bias that has me saying that I want Richarlison in. For me, Richarlison genuinely is a baller, and it's just a case of us not having had the opportunity to see that materialize yet. It hasn't come to fruition as of yet, but I think that if we just give him that little bit more time, keep him in the number 9, as you said yourself, he's had the surgery now. Hopefully those 2 goals will give him the confidence that he needs to go out and do exactly what we know he can do. The dude, like, those 2 goals were the first 2 goals he scored for Tottenham with his feet. Every single other time he scored with his head. The dude is unbelievable in the air, and now he's got his shooting boots on as well. I think that he could be an absolute nightmare for teams if we continue to pursue with him in the number 9, let him do what he's capable of doing. I think that he could be for Tottenham infinitely greater than we ever saw him be for Everton. So I just think that we need to persist with him, as far as I'm concerned.
For you, Dave, do you think that Richarlison really needs to prove it now before, let's say, January, or give him till the end of the season? I mean, what's your opinion on Richarlison?
Yeah, look, he's much better down the middle and Sonny on the left. I mean, Ange Postecoglou, right? So all of you are wrong on that. But no, look, when it comes to Richarlison, look, injuries, we have a huge problem with that, making players play through pain. And Postecoglou alluded to it before the game, that he looks a lot fresher in training. He's moving a lot better in training and stuff like that. And I think ultimately we've seen that on the football pitch, right? Things where I've been really frustrated with his game, getting the ball under control, first touch, laying it off to people. It's been so very inconsistent. In fact, I'd argue nearly not there for the large part of this season. But since that surgery, he looks like a brand new player. It was a great performance from him at the weekend against Newcastle. But if we want to get back to having great strikers at Tottenham, which I've always had in my lifetime, that's why I will not settle for anything less, because I've been absolutely spoiled in that department my whole life, is he needs to back it up. Great strikers back it up every single week, or the majority of the games over the course of the season. With Richarlison, it's been very stop-start, and you could put that down to injury, I suppose. But look, I think he's got, this month, potentially a run in January, maybe towards the end, to try and save his Spurs career, and it's up to him to do that now. Postecoglou also said that, all the club can do is keep providing these guys with chances. It's up to them if they want to grab that opportunity. He grabbed that at the weekend. I thought 2 great goals. You look at the first one, made a dart to the near post, then pulled off 2 quick movements in the space of a second to be able to put himself in the right position to receive the ball from Sonny. And then the second goal, I know a lot of people say it's a bad touch. I'd argue it's a good touch. He took it completely away from the keeper and managed to knock it by.
Did he mean it, though? Did he mean it?
I'd say yes. Personally. He's been watching Harry Kane for years do that, so I think he's just learning off the big man himself. But look, he's got to back it up. By no means am I going to sit here and say he's the answer this season off one game. One game isn't good enough for me. It needs to be the majority of games this season. So let's see how he does. But I will say, I really do enjoy the pigeon dance. And
Sim, a player that's outscoring Martinelli for Arsenal, double the goal contributions that Gabriel Jesus has as well. It's not too bad for a £60 million flop, is it?
It's doing all right. I mean, if you put it like that, he's having a great season. I think we can all safely say that this season's performances have, before Sunday, by and large, have been extremely poor, very frustrating, and it's been something that a lot of people have been questioning whether he has a future here with a lot of the performances he's been putting. And albeit there was a period during the season, I remember the Fulham game, Liverpool, there was a bit of a period where he was out on the left. After he came in against Sheffield United, he scored a goal, got an assist in that game. Like, he was going through a bit of a decent period.
Kind of always felt like you could get more from him, though.
Exactly.
They weren't like top performances. They were just better performances.
Exactly. You always felt like you wanted more from him. And you always felt like it was good, but it wasn't incredible. I think Sunday was the first performance where I really saw him and I was like, okay, this is the player I think we saw from at Everton. A lot freer in his movement, so much more energetic in the front line, really hounding the opposition, winning the ball back on the halfway line a couple of occasions. There was a couple of dribbles in there where he just seemed a lot more flexible and a lot more dynamic in his movement as well. And obviously he had the confidence to get his 2 goals, and I thought his general play was a lot stronger than it has been during the season. During the season, as David said, he's just struggled to just do simple layoffs, control a simple first touch, a simple pass. And it's really been very frustrating. And to Adam's point, I disagree, but I do think he had a bit of a run right at the beginning of the season where I think the first 3 games of the season, or 4 games of the season, he was playing up front as a number 9.
No, he was out on the left. The first couple of games of the season. I don't think he got too much.
It was the first 2 games.
Up until Burnley. So first 3, I think.
Wasn't Man United as well? Sonny played up front.
No, he didn't.
Or was it just Burnley?
Richarlison. It was up until Burnley. Richarlison was up front. So I think that's the first 3 games of the season. And he really flattered to deceive. But maybe it was because he was carrying this injury now. Now we have more information. Us football fans, we always judge very harshly, but we can only judge by the information we have. We didn't know about these mental issues he's been going through, these physical problems he's been going through, and obviously he's now come out that he's had these problems, and hopefully he's put those to bed finally, which is something he's clearly been struggled with. And Sunday was the first time I think physically we saw just a much more dynamic Richarlison, and it's very exciting to see. And I just hope this is what he carries on with, and that's the Richarlison we see going forward, because I know there's a much better player than what we've seen in a Tottenham shirt, much better. He's been a shadow of the player that we've seen at Everton, 100%, and he was a player at Everton who always gave a good game against the better teams as well. Always stepped up for the big games and was one always
scoring against Liverpool, didn't he?
Yeah, Liverpool, Arsenal, I remember, always gave him a good game. Man United, he always turned up in these games. Like, this is a player as well who, when he's on your side, the fans loved and they adored. He was always putting in 100%, always putting in big challenges. He was always a nuisance for the opposition centre-backs as well. So I think if we can get back to that, 100%, he's gonna have a big part to play from now to the end of the season, because it's almost as if people have forgotten about Richarlison in a way. When you think about our front line and what we can do, like, people don't even consider what Richarlison because of how bad he's been over the last 18 months. But it's almost like, in a way, if he can play like he did on Sunday, it would be like a new signing in a way.
He's had a lot of problems since joining Tottenham. Obviously last year, bit part role, sometimes on the right, in his least favoured position. He had his injury problems last year as well. Start of this season, he's been completely not right in probably a system that's more suited to him this season. But, he has been playing with injury. He's needed the surgery and has come back much better in that first game. We all kind of make... we put it to one side when we talk about Sonny, and we talk about Sonny playing through injury last year, and we kind of forgive him for the performances last year. And, Dave said, even in the first few games of the season, he was coming back from injury, and we make excuses for Sonny, and we accept those excuses. So why don't we accept those excuses for Richarlison?
Because he's not. His name isn't Son. He has Richie in front of it, so that's his problem.
Is it because Sonny's got just a lot more credit in the bank? Is that what it is?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Son's been doing it for years, right? As well, Richie came in at a time where we need players to make that instant impact, that instant jump, to really sort of try and pull us out, and he hasn't done it. So, look, I can understand. I can understand the narrative around Richie, but look, more goals and contributions than Jesus, than Rasmus Højlund, than Martinelli seems to get a lot of praise, and there's one more guy there as well. I can't remember his name. So,
Rashford.
Maybe there is Rashford as well. So maybe there is a little bit of an unfair narrative around Richarlison. But look, we don't have patience for players anymore because we're sick of players coming into this club and taking the piss out of it, like we've seen over the last three to 4 years. Especially under Steve Hitchen and a lot of his signings came to this football club, took big massive wages, but didn't want to put the performances in on the football pitch. So I can understand the lack of tolerance towards it.
And it's also like it's just the fact of the matter is, it can be excuses, but we just, in terms of Son, we've seen what he can do in the Spurs shirt. We just haven't seen it from Richarlison, so it's hard to make excuses for him. I know we've seen it for Everton, but it's one thing seeing it for another team. We have to see it, in a Spurs shirt, and we just haven't seen it at all.
Yeah, I do get kind of tired of it though, like saying when people say, oh, he's terrible, he's a terrible footballer. But I mean, yes, he has been a terrible footballer for Tottenham. There's no getting away from that. For the majority of his Spurs career, he has been terrible. But that doesn't mean he is actually a terrible footballer, because we've seen him perform in previous clubs in his career, for Everton, for Watford, for Brazil. We've seen him do it consistently for those kind of teams. So who's to say if he doesn't put his injury problems behind him, getting him in a system that suits him, which I think Ange Ball does suit him, especially in the number 9 role, who says he can't turn this around? We've seen players turn it around in the past when they've had terrible starts in a Spurs career, or terrible starts, for other clubs as well. So what's saying that Richarlison can't turn it around? Go to you, Adam.
Hey, you're singing from my hymn sheet now, mate. Absolutely singing from my hymn sheet now. I'm not saying, I would never suggest that he has an infinite amount of time to prove himself. Of course not. But I have consistently maintained that he needs to have a good run of games to be able to get into for us to be able to say that we really gave him a chance. He has to have a consistent number of games, which, we used to give players a long time ago. Do you know what I mean? People would how like Gareth Bale got like a ridiculous amount of chances, more than we felt he deserved in the beginning when he was playing at left back. And the guy, to me, he seemed like he was one of the worst left backs in the world at one stage. And then, but we gave him enough of an opportunity to finally prove himself, and we realized what his strengths are, what his utility was. So we used to do that. Now it's like, oh, you haven't performed in 2 games, sell him, and it's just mental. So I think that, as long as, again, I'm not saying that we have to give him an infinite number of chances, and I'm not saying that, like, by next summer, if he hasn't shown some quality, then I wouldn't lament letting him go. But I do think that I'd still be a little bit sore about it if we don't give him a consistent run of games where he's able to show what he's able to do. Now, what we saw on against Newcastle means that for the next number of games, whether he is performing or not, we should have him in the number 9, giving him that run of games to be able to show his quality. If at that point he's not doing it, okay, fine, let him go in the summer. I still wouldn't let him go in January, but let him go in the summer if we absolutely have to. But he needs to be given the time. You gotta give him the time, because there is a player in there. I truly believe it. I think anybody who has been following him, my concern with a lot of people who throw him under the bus is that they're not really paying that much attention. They're not really being honest about the amount of time that they've given the guy attention and tracked him, seen what he's done for Everton. I absolutely hated Richarlison when he played for Everton. He was my least favorite player in the whole league, only because of his shithousery, right? He just annoyed me to no end. But then when he joined, absolutely couldn't stand him. And then as soon as he joined us, it was like, yeah, but he's doing it for us now. And it, I think that it is a case of I believe that I have been, because of my loathing for him at one stage, I paid a lot of attention to him, when he was at Everton. I'm really keeping an eye on what he's doing at Spurs more than most, and I'm obviously watching every single Brazil game because of my wife. So I really think that I've seen enough to know that there is there's a serious baller in there. He just needs to be given the opportunity.
Do you think like the kind of patience with the Spurs fan base is because of maybe the big money that we did pay for him, 60 million, and also when we have paid that money to sign players more or less every single time they haven't worked out? You look at Ndombele, Giovanni Lo Celso, Ryan Sessegnon, you know, all these players that we spent massive money on, none of them have worked out. So I don't know. For me, like, he is in last chance saloon now because he hasn't been great. He's been terrible pretty much since pulling on that Spurs shirt. But now those injuries, problems are behind him. For me, there's no excuses now from now until the end of the season. If he doesn't do it from now until the end of the season, for me, we got to get rid of him. But he has to be given that chance, right?
Yeah, and I'm with you there. I'm absolutely 100% with you. If he hasn't shown his quality by the end of the summer, regardless, but by the time the summer rolls around, then regardless, we need to upgrade. And I'm totally down with that. I just always felt like we need to give him enough of a chance. And you're right. It's two things as far as I'm concerned. One is that we paid 60 million for him, so there is a degree to which you expect a return immediately. I can respect that up to a point. But the second half of the coin is just people's impatience. People are not willing to give players time anymore. We're living in a fast food generation where everybody wants what they want now. They don't want to wait for it, and they're not willing to give it time. And there is a degree to which Richarlison's sort of his body language doesn't ingratiate himself with the fans. So like, Ange comes in, and the charisma of the man, you'd give the guy 4 years to get the team into the shape it needs to be to go on and win titles and win cups again. You'd give it to him because of his charisma. Richie, I think he's a bit like Marmite. You either love him or you hate him, just in terms of his personality. So with a lot of the fans, I'd say as well, he hasn't necessarily ingratiated himself. So they don't have that tolerance and they don't have that patience. But I think patience is something we need to learn to develop as a society in general, but also as Tottenham Hotspur fans. And I think that we should start with Richarlison, give him the time he needs, give him till the summer, and we see how we get on.
Any response to that, Dave?
Look, I don't. To the unfair narrative surrounds him, I get it to a certain degree, but it is the players' performances on the pitch that drives these narratives. The fans don't just pluck it out of the air and to go on some sort of agenda. It's because of the performances that we've seen on the pitch. And look, we're seeing this with a lot of players, over the last couple of seasons, that Paratici has brought into this club, where they're almost written off before they got here. People are already Rick Kulu off before he even stepped foot on the pitch for Tottenham Hotspur. And that is something that has to change. But however, I do feel like a bit of a fraud asking the fan base to, show a little bit of patience, even when it's behind Ange Postecoglou, because we've been patient. We've been patient for them to get this sorted out since the Champions League final and get a squad fully capable of going and competing. We've shown more than enough patience. But at the end of the day, I think fans are right to hold players to a higher standard. It's not a bad thing at the end of the day. If the player ain't good enough to meet them standards, then just bin him and get the next guy in that does. Football, the way football's going, it doesn't have patience anymore. It's instant. You've got to try and do the right things to go and do it now. And look, when it comes to players, if you don't want that narrative surrounded by you, do what we bought you to do on the football pitch. It's that simple. Too many players come to this club and taking the piss, not performing. And what that does then is, if other players come in and they're injured and stuff like that, they automatically get sort of thrown into that category, just purely because of what's gone on before them. Look, I think the problem's twofold. I think the fans are right to do it, but also, I do think he's been lumped in with other players, and his injury hasn't been enough.
So having said that, Dave, how long do you give him? Do you agree with me? Give him till the end of the season? Or, I remember having a chat with you on your show a couple of weeks ago with Sean saying, let's just get rid of him in January, because at that point we'd literally seen absolutely nothing from him. So where's your head at now after that game?
Look, I think we'll have to give him to the end of the season. Tottenham ain't going to go out and spend 60, 70, 80 million on a striker in the January transfer window. And the reason why it probably has to be that much is because you're looking at the calibre of player. We brought in Valise for a couple of million, but the guy just ain't ready to come in and fill the boots. Look, for me, I think you've got to give Richarlison till the end of the season at this point. But if he doesn't do it, I don't want to see any more. This no, sell him. Try and get rid of take cut price, because all you're doing is you're going to delay the inevitable of bringing in a striker. We've seen that with the likes of Van Dembele for years. We keep loaning them out. We're not dealing with the problem. Joe Roden, we keep loaning them out. We're not dealing with the problem. And then when it comes to relying, you've got injuries and stuff. You're like, okay, let's bring in some bodies. You ultimately end up relying on the same guys. Even a Celso, 4 years for him to come here to start performing. I don't want to see this problem dragged out. If it ain't working in the summer, take a hit on it. You got it wrong, and get the next guy in here.
Sim, do you agree? I mean, is it a case of giving him until the summer, or do you think the trust or the expectations should extend after the summer?
Well, he can't be performing like he has been for most of the season until the summer and expect more time. Definitely not. So 100% he needs to show something. But if he can, get between 10 to 15 goal contributions between now and the end of the season.
Well, he's already on 6.
Yeah. So, he gets maybe between 10 and 15.
If he gets 10 goal contributions, total from now until the end of the season, I mean, from the beginning of the season to the end, I would say that's quite poor, to be honest, if he's already on 6.
No, I'm saying he needs to get like 15 then. So 15 or between 15 and 20 maybe. Then I think he would earn another season. But there's all context. Obviously, you have to show on the pitch that he's playing well as well. It's not just about the goal contributions. But I want to see quality from him. That's been something that's severely lacking from him since he's come to Tottenham. But I'm willing to. I haven't given up on him yet, 100%. If he shows more performances like on Sunday, then he's got more than a part to play. So. Obviously, he needs to up his game. He needs to be showing more consistency and more quality from now to the end of the season. But it obviously depends. It depends how he ends the season if he's going to get more time.